¡Ahí viene la migra!
Trucha, ahí viene la migra. Ahí viene trompetas. Ahí viene una serie de cambios en las leyes de migración que va a transformar nuestras comunidades, pero también a la misma vez ahí viene una serie de eventos aquí en El Paso que refleja un gran movimiento nacional. Jamás hemos visto este tipo de movimiento en más de 30 años. Todo el mundo se está movilizando en resistencia de estos cambios drásticos que viene contra la comunidad inmigrante y obviamente contra la comunidad mexicana. Muy buenos días, yo soy Carlos Spector, abogado de migración, aquí conduciendo Trucha Time, un programa creado para ponerlos trucha, para que se den cuenta de estos cambios. Hoy tenemos un programa muy especial. We have with us today County Commissioner David Stout and a well-known local leader, Gabriela Castaneda, from the Border Network, to give us an idea of what they're doing and what our community is doing in light of the administrative and legislative changes that are coming just around the corner. As always on Trucha Time, I think it's important to begin with what the state of the situation is, and then we'll get an analysis from our guest. Para ustedes también este programa, como es Trucha Time, es un programa bilingüe, creo que es uno de los pocos programas bilingües pro inmigrante que existe. Estamos cómodos en inglés, pocho y español. 577-0750 si ustedes quieren participar. 577-0750. Now, one of the things that we're concerned about is that it is very clear that on January 20th, no later than January 21st, President-elect Trump will revoke DACA. And so the question has always been, what's Plan B? They revoke your work authorization. Do they take your work permit away immediately, or do they let it expire? My sense is that the Republican Party and Trump come in slashing, and you're left with nothing. You're out of status. But it appears to be even worse. A new memo has been released that appeared in the Washington Post today that indicates that Trump has already sent a memo to the Department of Homeland Security wanting to know if the President Obama has signed any agreements or has any provisions that would keep the names and addresses of the DACA applicants confidential. And so that appears to mean that they're going after these people. Now, the other thing that he's asked is that what resources are available to build a wall. Because Trump wants to build a wall without having to pass new legislation. Trump has changed his mind and said that Mexico will pay for it, but later. Immediately, the taxpayer, the middle class, will pay for the wall, and then later, the promise goes, Mexico will pay with it. And more disturbing is that Trump has also been questioning the Department of Homeland Security as to the capacity of ICE to open new detention centers. So our biggest fears are being realized that Trump was not playing, Trump is for real, and Trump will keep his promise in terms of his attacks upon the immigrant community. Now, this also has a legislative face. One of the bills that was introduced in the last congressional session, which we believe is going to be reintroduced this year, is there were two bills. The Bridge Act, sponsored by people who support DACA, which would make the executive action into law. It would codify DACA, and that would be the Bridge Act. And the Bridge Act was designed, I'm talking about Plan B. Plan B politically may take the form for many, but not not the sole plan, for DACA recipients. The congressional response is the Bridge Act, which would codify the DACA, which will give 3 years of provisional temporary work authorization. And the Republican answer to that is the SAFE Act, which is sponsored by Senator Blake from Arizona, which would do what the old amnesty bill did, fix some and screw the rest. And this means that in this particular case, what Blake has suggested is that let's adopt the Bridge Act and allow kids to continue working here for 3 years at a time. But at the same time, in order to pass it, it has to have strong law enforcement provisions, which means opening up new prisons, giving over $100 million to do so. Within 14 days, swearing in 150 new immigration judges, which means hiring political hacks to deport people quickly. I've been an immigration lawyer for 30 years, and to become an immigration judge is a 2 or 3 year process. It's not overnight, but what they're willing to do in 14 days is to select people who don't know the law, but who are willing to deport people. They also intend to pass the law where you would be allowed, the immigration judges would be mandated, forced to deport people within 90 days, which means a violation of due process. Justice doesn't have a time period, but has a series of protections and guarantees with how you regulate your courts. And then also hiring 100 new trial attorneys to accelerate these deportations. Now, one of the most horrible provisions of the law is that right now under the law there's something called mandatory detention, that if you're picked up and have committed relatively serious crimes, you're not eligible for a bond, so you can be locked up for a year or two without seeing the light of day. This bill would expand it to have you arrested have you detained permanently or for prolonged periods of time with no bond if you've been arrested. Even if you get in a fight and it wasn't your fault and you were arrested, the mere fact you were arrested is enough for mandatory detention. So we see the tightening of the screw against the community. And what that means is that local communities throughout the country have been mobilizing in individual ways. And today we're going to look at what's happening in El Paso and how we are plugging in to this national movement. We have with us today David Stout, a long-term community activist, not only here, but an activist on immigrant rights throughout the years, who was formerly employed by Senator Rodriguez. Well, let me start with that, David. Welcome to Trucha Time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Tell us a little about yourself before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you're doing and how you see the situation.
Okay, I've been on the Commissioner's Court for the past 2 years. Before that, as you said, I worked for our state senator, Jose Rodriguez, for nearly 4 years. And prior to that, for about 8 years, I was a journalist, and I worked for Telemundo and Univision. Most recently, Univision, Channel 26 here in El Paso. So.
Okay. Now, one of the County Commissioner's Court is a local political body. And nonetheless, it has had a history, especially under the leadership of County Judge Escobar, in addressing many of the concerns of our community, especially in its relationship with the border network over the years. How does the County Commissioner's Court view what's happening, and what measures have they taken, and what measures are they looking at?
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of the other members of the court, but over the past couple of years, I feel that we definitely have shown to be quite progressive when it comes to these types of issues. In the 2015 state legislative session, we passed a resolution in support of immigrants and against sanctuary city legislation. On Monday, County Judge Veronica Escobar has placed an item on the agenda, another resolution that would basically do the same, that would send a message to our state legislature that the values here in El Paso County are those that we accept immigrants and we stand behind, especially the dreamers, of course, that are possibly going to be under attack here in a couple of days. But apart from that, we also have been working with the Board Network for Human Rights and other local advocacy or organizations to create a community ID for undocumented populations. So my office has been working very closely with the BNHR, and over the past 2 years, we've been able to secure the votes for money to be set aside in this budget year, the 2017 budget year, to try and implement that program. Now it's expensive to start up. It's close to $800,000 to start up, and we're also looking to the city to help pay for that. So we set aside about $360,000, I believe, to begin with our side of that. We're holding off on the implementation of the program until after this the state legislative session is over with, because of course I think everybody knows that there are anti-sanctuary city bills being floated, and we don't want to begin spending that money and then later have to stop and have issues with the state government because of the fact that we're doing this program. Now, right now, we don't have a clear definition of what a sanctuary city is, so I don't even know if us doing this would be considered as a sanctuary city activity. But I wouldn't put it past them to include that. So I know that we're on their radar, and so we're trying to be cautious, also trying to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. So we want to make sure that we don't start spending the money before we know that we can actually do that. So once the legislative session is over, and hopefully the fight the fight's going to be tough, and it's probably going to be on the House side, and not the Senate is very conservative. On the House side, we have a very moderate speaker in Joe Strauss. And I think that's where we're going to win the fight if we do win the fight. But we're gonna wait to implement the program until after the session's over, so that we know that we're not spending money with and then losing it.
Now the resolution is as I have before me is not titled. How would you title it?
There probably will be a title. I think the copy you have is probably a draft, and so once the resolution is printed out, I'm not sure what the title would be, but that's up to the judge's office.
How would you characterize this resolution?
I think it's a very strong resolution in support of immigrants, in support of dreamers, and to let the state legislature and other folks know that we are gonna not only continue to stand up for those populations, but we're going to oppose any legislation that is coming through that would have to do with sanctuary cities, that would have to do with taking or discriminatory pieces of legislation. I think the county is very progressive when it comes to that, and I would imagine it would pass. Like I said, I can't speak for my opponents, but I know that in the past it has passed. The one that we did 2 years ago it was 4-1, so there was only one commissioner that didn't vote for it, but 3 is enough.
Right. Now, I would, the sense I got of it is that it's an immigrant rights, human dignity resolution that gives the world and our community in the state of Texas and the country a sense of Commissioner's Court as representatives of our city. And I salute County Commissioner's Court because I think it is important as a border city to have, if I would say, a disproportionate say on border issues because we are those who are most affected. And historically, the city and the county have been very progressive on these issues. Now, it does lay out a series of clauses that speaks to the benefit of the immigrant community, to the broader community, and its contributions over the years, and how expensive it would be, and how harsh it would be at the same time to implement many of the provisions that the Trump administration is proposing, and many that the Texas House and Senate will be proposing, apparently in the coming months. Now, is there anything like this pending with the city that you're aware of?
I couldn't tell you if the city has something like this coming up, but I would definitely hope that they also would do something similar. I think it's of utmost importance for all governmental organizations, especially along the border, the city, the county. I mean, even the school district passed a resolution recently.
Exactly.
And I was very, very proud of our school board and superintendent for their efforts with that. But I would urge the city to do something like this as well. I think we all need to be unified and to show our strength. I think everybody needs to be involved.
Right, and I think that the resolution that the El Paso Independent School District passed also gave a welcoming message to its students and to the parents of the students that with or without paper, you're obligated to go to school, and as such, we are going to respect your dignity. Now, one of the questions I posed to Susie Bird last week when she appeared here, who's a trustee of the El Paso Independent School District, is that why do you support IDs? And one of the things that she responded to was the fact that many of the parents don't have IDs, which means that puts them at odds with the school district, because without an ID, you can't pick up your kids.
It's difficult for them to get their kids out of school.
So it has many practical aspects to it. And Gabriela will give us some of the reasons why they're pushing it, because they've been the leaders on this issue over the years. But let me ask you, now, this proposed ID card, would that be a joint county commissioners as proposed or as envisioned a joint ID card by the county and the city?
That's what we're trying to work out with the city. We definitely think that at least it should be recognized by the city, but I think it should be recognized countywide. And so we're not just trying to work with the city of El Paso, but all of the other 8 or 10 municipalities that are within El Paso County. We've been talking with them over the past couple of years with all of the school districts for them to be able to accept and recognize the identification. But definitely, the way I envision it, the way the BNHR I think envisions this, is that it be countywide, but it be sponsored by both the city of El Paso and the county of El Paso.
Good. Now I want to welcome Gabriela Castaneda from the Border Network. Vamos a presentar a Gabriela Castaneda de la Red Fronteriza. We will be discussing very shortly, Gabriela, the hugs, not walls, el abrazos, no fregazos, es decir, abrazos, no muros, movimiento, porque es muy interesante. But nonetheless, I want to get your input on this battle for identity of certain aspects or members of our community, and the Border Network's historic involvement in this.
Yes, I want to know that we are fighting to have an identity here, because we've been living within El Paso for 10, 20 years, and we've been having to present law enforcement agencies with the matrícula consular, which is an identification that a foreign government is giving us in order to identify ourselves. But I want to say that we don't want to use it because most of the law enforcement agencies don't see it as a valid document. And we feel embarrassed in any place where we present this matricula consular, we know that we are going to be discriminated. And having an ID that is given by the county or the city of El Paso, it's very practical. As you said it before, we are not able to pick our children from school because we don't have a valid identification. So it is only a fight for identity, a fight for dignity, and it's a fight to say we are here and we are productive members of society, and it's not something that's going to give us access to permanent residence. That's not the case, and I know that we need to inform the public because some people ignores that this is just an identification document, and they start believing that we're going to get permanent residence and we're going to cut the line and that we're not doing stuff right, but there's no other way to do it.
Right. Now, I guess one of the other benefits of it would be, as I'm thinking out loud, is the fact that, for example, the state of Texas, the Attorney General's office and Governor Abbott had favored denying birth certificates to the undocumented parents. And it took a lawsuit in South Texas by the Texas Civil Rights Project to get them to stop that. And at that point, I think one of the reasons they weren't giving it is because the parents didn't have IDs. So you couldn't even get your kid's ID. And for the county, who has the civil registry there, or the civil division there, it's important for people to get those documents. I mean, even to pick up a copy of your divorce is an important tool. So I think it's an important pushback by the local community that doesn't give you a right to work, and it's not proof of legal presence. So I think the time has come for this community to support the county commissioner's efforts and the Border Network's efforts, and the community efforts to come out of the shadows and participate fully as opposed to partially, without violating any laws. And I think I would encourage the public to support it. Now, one of the reasons that people have indicated that they're against it is pretty much the arguments of Commissioner Haggerty, that it was cost effective. You are a Mexican. I couldn't get a Mexican ID, but it doesn't really take into consideration, I believe, the reality of immigration. Gabriela is a proud DACA recipient, having been raised here most of her life. Yet, if this thing is revoked, would have nothing left probably but that ID.
Yes, exactly. I really want to say that we need to do what's right, and we need to leave aside the thing that we didn't come here legally. We need to understand that we need to do what's right, even though we know that we're gonna face a tough battle in the Texas legislature. But we're talking about hardworking families. We're not talking about criminals, and unfortunately, we've been labeled as criminals. And we need to understand and educate ourselves that we are families that have lived in El Paso for a long time, and we need to face reality and try to look for ways to fix this problem.
Now, what have your efforts been for the city council to support this?
I know that we've been talking to city council members and taking dozens of testimonies from families that been at the city hall, telling them why is it important to have this kind of document. And I feel like they've been listening to us, and that we need to move forward. As Commissioner Stout said, they set aside money in order to advance this project, but we need the city also to come forward and help us in this battle.
Y brevemente también para nuestros radio escuchas hispanoparlantes, les quiero avisar que hay un movimiento aquí en El Paso para extender una identificación del condado y la ciudad para ustedes que no tienen identificación, para que puedan vivir con dignidad y seguridad en esta ciudad. La Corte de los Comisionados han votado 4-1 o 3-1, 4-1.
Fue 4-1.
4-1 en favor de una resolución, en favor de extender una tarjeta de identificación. Están esperando un movimiento del estado de Texas antes de actualmente empezar a imprimirlos por el hecho de que el estado de Texas intenta castigar personas que se declaran ciudades santuarias. Y el problema es que no tenemos esa definición de qué constituye una ciudad de santuarios. 577-0750 if you have any calls or comments. We have David Stout with us today from County Commissioner's Court and Gabriela Castaneda from the Border Network for Human Rights. Now, so those are some of the concrete efforts that are being made by our elected representatives. And I think that everybody knows, and I'm saying this because we're streamlining throughout the country as well, and letting people know that these things just don't happen in New York City or in San Francisco, but in El Paso we have a very progressive, united, diverse community that has been supportive of these measures. And if anybody wants copies of this resolution, you can contact David Stout at
546-2111.
546-2111. That's area code 915. It's a well-drafted resolution, not just for a sense of the political entity, but also for any discussions you may want to have with them about this effort. It's a national effort that's happening throughout the country, and we're proud to be on the cusp of being able to extend that, because much of the resistance to what's happening in the Trump administration is going to have to be at the local level and ultimately tied to a national movement, which the type that we haven't seen in many generations. Now, there's not just a pushback by the county Commissioner's Court and the El Paso Independent School District, but there's been an ongoing pushback for approximately 20 years by the Border Network for Human Rights to bring dignity and clarity as to who immigrants in our community are, con o sin papeles. And so one of the events that has sparked international interest here along the border has been something called Hugs, Not Walls by the Border Network. ¿Qué es esto? Abrazos, no fregazos, o abrazos, no muros, movimiento.
Me gusta ese nombre. Mira, we're going to be having our third event called Hugs Not Walls at the middle of the Rio Grande. And one of the purpose of this event is to bring families together, obviously. What that means is if you have not seen a loved one in a long time because he or she was deported, you can take advantage of this event, because Border Network for Human Rights will make it possible for you to be able not only to see your loved one, but to embrace and hug your family member at the middle of the Rio Grande. Obviously, the river is dry. There's no water there. So in order to participate in this event, you need to register in person at our offices. We are located at 2115 North Piedra Street in El Paso, Texas, zip code 79930. All I'm going to be asking for is name, telephone number, physical address, and email address for each participant, whether they live here or if they live in Mexico. I want to say that your information is kept confidential. We don't share your information with any law enforcement agency. Who can participate? Everybody. U.S. citizen, legal permanent residents, undocumented immigrants, people with U visa, people with BAWA, people with DACA, people with political asylum. Now, if you live in the interior and you're planning to attend this event, you will need to present a work permit at the immigration checkpoint. If you live in Las Cruces or in El Paso and you're undocumented, you can still participate because you don't need to cross immigration checkpoints. The other purpose of the event, and the main one, is to send a clear message to our Congress. They need to know that we have a humanitarian crisis. We have millions of families separated, deported, and unnecessary suffering. We're talking about hardworking families, mixed families that live in constant fear of being separated. This event is kind of a pacific protest. We need to stop family separation and we need permanent family reunification, and the only way we're going to be able to get that is through a comprehensive immigration reform. Not any kind of reform, one that offers a pathway to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented immigrants already living and working in the United States.
Now, I attended the first Hugs Not Walls event, and I think like everybody who participated and witnessed it, I was very moved, not just because of the human dimension of it, que de repente poder tocar tu mamá, abrazar tu esposa, besar tus niños, algo que muy emotivo. Now, but what was so impressive was how you guys were able to organize it, not just community to community, but country to country, because you brought the Border Patrol together with police on the Mexican side, federal police there, y lo único que faltaba es que ellos mismos se besaran, porque they were moved too, casi se besaron, se abrazaban, era algo muy bonito, y realmente lo único que quiero corregir es que no está seco el río, hay soquete. Yes. Vengan con sus botas, porque it was a lot of mud. It was beautiful, and it didn't smell very nice, but it was
right.
It was worth it.
It was worth it, definitely. A lot of people's asking us, how were you able to talk to Border Patrol and have this event without them doing anything? And it is important to understand that this did not happen overnight. We have been working with Border Patrol for 15, 16 years, and it wasn't easy at the first moment. We have what we call an abuse documentation campaign, and in the first years of having this dialogue with them and pressure, we were having a lot of problems with Border Patrol. Border Patrol was the agency that was committing abuses against family members the most. From 150 cases that we collected in 2003, 70% were coming from Border Patrol. So it's not something that you can do from morning to night. We've been having a dialogue and a pressure with them for over 16 years already, and we are at the point that we can have this event at the border without them asking the participants whether they are legal residents or they are undocumented.
Now, you're absolutely right. Estas cosas no caen del cielo. It's a lot of hard work and trust between the agencies. One of my concerns, and I'd like to get your view on it, is what does Trump mean for all this? Because as we know, these federal agencies receive directives from Washington, and my sense would be that this may be the kind of thing that Trump may prohibit.
I know.
Because you're talking about hugs, not walls.
Exactly.
And his whole campaign is walls.
For a wall.
Is for a wall. And so that puts us in a predicament, and of course is an issue that we're going to have to face. And it really does disrupt the trust and the relationship that the Border Network, an immigrant rights organization, has engendered and developed with the Border Network. So it's kind of a sad state of affairs that community organizations are in the process, a long process of establishing understanding and relations with local law enforcement to make our communities both secure, safe, and productive. And so I trust we'll be there. Now, again, let's give those details again. When is this?
This is going to be happening on January 28th. This is a Saturday, and we are having a meeting before that with all the families that are already registered. We need to let them know all of the logistics there. When are we meeting? At what time? How is this going to happen? And we are ready to have that event, and we need to take advantage of this event. If you haven't seen your loved one, don't be scared. This is our third event. We're never going to do something that's going to hurt you.
Right. Now, before the 28th, on maybe two other occasions, I'd like to have you back with some of the families that participated and devote two programs to it right before it, maybe the week of it,
Yes.
to build it up and to do it, y lo hacemos en español.
Perfecto.
Pero brevemente creo que lo que es importante ahorita es extender esa invitación y los requisitos en español, and then we'll get back to some other events in the community.
Sí, quiero invitar a todas las personas que están escuchando ahorita a que si no han visto un ser querido desde hace muchos años debido a deportación o cualquiera que haya sido la causa, ustedes no pueden ir a México, ellos no pueden venir, tienen que aprovechar este evento que está haciendo, que está realizando la Red Fronteriza por los Derechos Humanos, porque les vamos a dar la oportunidad de que no solamente vean a su ser querido, sino que lo abracen. Ustedes saben lo importante que es poder tocar a esa persona que no has visto en años. Te vamos a dar la oportunidad de que lo hagas. Somos una organización de derechos humanos, pero el propósito principal del evento es mandar un mensaje claro de que tenemos millones de familias separadas y de que no lo podemos seguir permitiendo. Este es un tipo de protesta pacífica y lo tenemos que entender así. Esto se lleva a cabo el enero 28, es un sábado. Si quieren registrarse, tienen que hacerlo en persona. Estamos ubicados en el 2115 North Piedras, en El Paso, Texas. Lo único que les pido es nombre, dirección y teléfono de todos los que vayan a participar. Su información es confidencial, no se comparte con nadie. Organícense, participen, edúquense y ayúdenos a avanzar la lucha por los derechos humanos. Pueden contactarnos al 915-577-0724 o al 915-494-4213.
577-0724. Si quieren participar en un evento extraordinario y tener la oportunidad de abrazar su ser querido, sería algo muy importante. Tuve el placer y la oportunidad de asistir a uno de estos eventos y realmente es algo muy emotivo, algo que jamás se les va a olvidar. Se van a quedar con el beso en la cara y el apretón del abrazo por muchos años, y vale la pena y creo que deben de participar. Vamos a tener varios programas sobre esto, la semana del 28 para hacer esto. ¿Cuándo es el último día para registrarse?
Empezamos a registrar nuevamente el 10 de enero y terminamos hasta el 19 de enero.
Okay.
Ya nada más nos quedan esos días.
Pues mira, lo que podemos hacer el lunes, vamos a tener representantes de mexicanos en exilio hablando de la situación en México, que yo pienso que va a crear un flujo de personas pidiendo asilo, lo cual es el gasolinazo en Juárez con todas las protestas. Y a la vez ellos están muy interesados en registrarse. Entonces yo creo que matamos dos pájaros con un tiro. Perfecto. El lunes ven de nuevo y empezamos a hablar de ese evento y aquí mismo con Mexicanos en Exilio registramos a muchos de los familiares de eso. Now, vamos a hablar, let's talk a little about the Border Network's efforts to go to lobbying efforts in Texas, and then after that, get in conjunction with that, get Commissioner Stout's take on that, because he has extensive experience with the politicians and the legislative process. When is the Border Network going to Austin?
We have planned a series of events, and I believe one is going to be on the 9th of February. We're going to be there lobbying with the people there in Austin, letting them know about the rights, about the reality of the border, this is not a chaotic border, this is not an open border. We are not a nonprofit that's for open borders, and people need to know that. We are for law enforcement agencies that respect civil and constitutional rights. We have some other dates, but I don't have them with me right now. So.
We can now, David, on from your perspective as an insider, someone with deep understanding of the political process, how do these type of efforts? What impact does a group like Border Network going to Austin, and for example, especially in this climate, this anti-immigrant climate. What impact does an immigrant group like this, with the support of county court, the El Paso School District, and other political entities, hopefully before the 9th of February, have upon policyholders? Who should they target? There's clearly some people that no matter who talks to them is not going to be open.
Right. I usually, the first people you target is your own legislative delegation. I think that the 5 members of our delegation, at least 4 of the 5, are on our side and definitely are going to be fighting for this for El Paso and for and against the anti-sanctuary city bills that come through. Also, it's important to reach out to the committee chairs that once the bills are filed, the Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor will refer them to the committees, and so whichever committee that these bills are sent to, it's really important to reach out to the committee chairs and to the members of each chamber that are on those committees as well to continue to apply pressure at that level. I think especially on the Senate side, that's the level where the most amount of pressure needs to be applied, because usually once a bill is passed out of a committee and is ready to go to the Senate floor, if it's brought up on the Senate floor, that means it's going to have the votes to pass. So I think the pressure needs to be applied early on. And I'll be in Austin actually next week, and the organization RITA, which is a statewide organization that does advocacy on behalf of civil rights and immigrants as well, and of which I believe the Border Network is a member. They will be having an event on I believe the 10th next week, which is the day that the legislature is going to be opening or starting up, and so I'll be participating in that. They'll have a press conference and then be doing some advocacy as well. And so now's the time. Now's definitely the time to be calling the Lieutenant Governor, calling the Speaker of the House, calling the committee chairs, calling the committee members, and we have to keep a constant pressure, letters, phone calls, emails. In the past, people have come up with some innovative ideas to express their support or opposition to bills by sending. For example, I remember when I worked for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops in Washington D.C. There was an effort where they sent work gloves to all of the members of Congress, and each pair of work gloves represented a worker in construction, or who an undocumented worker that worked in construction, to show them, how many houses and buildings in this country are being built by undocumented workers, and so those types of campaigns are very important, I think. But the legislators, the members, they listen to the people, and I think they listen to the voices that are strong. And so, I mean, there are obviously some folks that doesn't matter what you do or how much you tell them or how many times you tell them, they're not going to change their opinion. But there are others that are swayable and that are winnable. And so it's important to talk to our own delegation to find out which of their colleagues they think are swayable, and then be strategic about it as well.
Very good. We have there's a series of other events that are occurring in El Paso. It's a very exciting time to live in El Paso. It's a very exciting time to see the people rise in unity to address what we perceive to be a series of inhumane policies and practices. We have with us Teddy. She's with the Hope Border Institute to talk about an event. They'll be with us on Wednesday for a full hour to talk about hope, its hopes, and work. But there is a special mass that's going to be held on the next week, Thursday, January 12th. Good morning, Teddy.
Good morning, Carlos. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Tell us a little about who you are, because I know you're new to the region, and I want to formally welcome you con un abrazo fuerte y cariñoso for such a tremendous human being to be part of our community is a real addition, and I've had the pleasure to work with you and want to formally introduce you to our community by extending this invitation to talk about your work and this event.
Muchas gracias, Carlos. As you said, I am new to the region and very excited and honored to be a part of the incredible work of the faith community and of the advocate community here in El Paso on behalf of all of our Borderlands residents. So it's really been such a pleasure to work with the community. So the Hope Border Institute, we are working with the church and faith leaders and civic leaders and civil society on advancing social justice from a faith perspective. And in a new environment where a lot of people are experiencing a lot of fear and doubt and uncertainty, we wanted to organize an event to allow faith leaders to express their solidaridad con la comunidad y afirmar la dignidad de todos y todas los y las residentes de estas comunidades fronterizas. And so next Thursday, January 12th, in Catedral, we're having a servicio de oración interreligioso. We'll have leaders of many different faith traditions offering prayers from their faith traditions for solidarity and dignity for our community. And we have a great honor of having presentes con nosotros estudiantes y recipientes de DACA, familias de mixed status families, familias que algunos tienen documentos y otras no las tienen, y van a compartir sus testimonios sobre sus experiencias de vivir en este momento de mucha duda, pero también sus esperanzas para el futuro, para que nosotros como comunidad podemos sumirnos a sus luchas y a sus esperanzas y hacer solidaridad también con sus luchas.
Pero va a ser una misa y una reunión a la vez, ¿verdad?
Va a ser un servicio de oración interreligiosa. Entonces el obispo Sait va a presidir y vamos a ofrecer oraciones de diferentes fe.
Ok, entonces de nuevo el 12 de enero a las 6 de la tarde en el Catedral de San Patricio, en la calle Mesa, va a haber un evento muy religioso, interreligioso, muy importante, y invitamos a todo el mundo a asistir a eso. El próximo miércoles estará el director Corbin, Dylan Corbett, para invitarlos formalmente. Yo creo que es importante apoyar el esfuerzo de Hope, y ojalá que la gente que va a la misa va al evento de la red fronteriza, y la gente de la red fronteriza va al servicio religioso para dignidad y solidaridad. Teddy, muchas gracias, un abrazo, y ahí nos vemos otra vez, y los invito de nuevo el lunes a hablar al programa y extender la invitación, porque creo que es un evento muy importante que merece el apoyo de nuestra comunidad. ¿Ok?
Muchas gracias, Carlos, así es.
Adiós.
Un abrazo fuerte para ti.
Gracias.
Gracias.
So there we have it. You know, we have a series of events and activity by our elected officials and human rights organizations. Now, this is not just something that's happening locally. There's something that's happening nationally. Now, there's a National Day of Resistance that's being organized by the Democratic Party on January 15th, organized by Chuck Schumer, the leading Democrat, and the new outreach person is none other than Bernie Sanders, and they have selected on January 15th, one day before the formal celebration of Martin Luther King's birthday, January 15th, for communities who cannot go to Washington January 20 to have their events locally. And they've selected the issue of health. However, and I think in a very nice twist or adaptation, Congressman O'Rourke has selected a Dreamers community meeting on January 15th, Sunday at 1:30 p.m. It's not going to be a march, it's going to be a rally. January 15th at 1:30, Dreamers community meeting, where he will have other community leaders and like the other events, DACA recipients, to pull our resources together to help us help each other and to give each other hope and faith that collectively we can make these changes. And so this is part of a national movement. Some people are new to this. Some people have been at it for many years. But in any event, I think it's important to come out on January 15th. Now, the first event, again, is January 12th, St. Patrick's Church at 6, sponsored by Hope and the Catholic Diocese. And then we have January 15th, the Dreamers Community Meeting, sponsored by Congressman O'Rourke's office, San Jacinto Plaza at 1:30. And then, of course, we have Hugs Not Walls on January 28th. And so this is all something that's happening as the new year arrived. And so I think this is a harbinger of good things to come for our community. And we have been reduced to tears and fear. But como dijimos aquí in Trucha Time, we may be afraid, we must be scared, we may be scared, but we got to be prepared. Asustados, pero no como preparados, no escamados. And so I believe we're running out of time. We have a couple of moments left. Now, any further comments or invitations?
Sí, también me gustaría invitar a la gente a la reunión de la Corte el lunes, porque vamos a estar tratando de aprobar esta resolución que patrocinó la juez Escobar. Y entonces siempre es bueno que vaya gente a hablar a favor de la resolución, porque a lo mejor va a haber oposición, no sabemos como la vez pasada, pero siempre es bueno ver a nuestros residentes, a la gente que representamos y proveyendo su apoyo para este tipo de cosas.
¿A qué hora es?
Es a las 9:30 el lunes en el tercer piso del edificio de la Corte, en el 500 de la calle San Antonio, ahí en el centro. Esta resolución se va a discutir exactamente a las 9:30 o es parte de la agenda del día? Es parte de la agenda del día, pero normalmente tomamos las resoluciones en el principio de la reunión. Entonces, entre las 9:30 y las 10. Hay 3 resoluciones que se va a oír ese día. Entonces, tomamos lo que se llama el consent agenda primero, que normalmente es un voto rápido, y luego ya entramos a lo que es el public, la oportunidad para que hable el público. Entonces, sí, o sea, yo le diría a la gente que si quiere llegar y quiere hablar, que llegue a las 9:30, porque lo vamos a tomar muy rápido.
De nuevo, a las 9:30 en la Corte de los Comisionados.
Sí, ese es en el tercer piso, allá del edificio de la Corte, en el 500 de la calle San Antonio.
¿Y cuánto tiempo nos dan para...?
Son 3 minutos cada persona, que normalmente se les da.
¿Y el que habla más de 3 minutos hay un cargo eléctrico o algo para...?
hay una puertita y se cae a un balde lleno de víboras.
No hace falta, porque algunos tienen más saliva que otros. Entonces, De nuevo, creo que es importante ir a la Corte de Comisionadas el lunes a las 9:30 y apoyar, porque es muy posible que llegue un grupo con muchas personas para dar la impresión de que no apoyamos eso. Again, also on Monday, County Commissioners Court on the 3rd floor. If you want to support the resolution sponsored by David Stout and County Judge Escobar, it's important to go and show them your support, because it's a beautiful resolution which does nothing other than express the county's support for the dignity and humanity of all people in our communities, whether they're fleeing violence, hunger, pain, or a broken heart. There are many motives to immigrate.
Sí, y me gustaría agradecer a Ruben Vogt de la oficina de la juez, que trabajó con la red fronteriza para escribir, la resolución. Siempre tenemos que, en mi opinión, darle gracias a nuestros asistentes que nos ayudan, porque gran parte del trabajo que hacemos nosotros es por ellos.
Ok, ¿alguna otra palabra o invitación?
Pues sí, quiero invitar a la gente que si ahorita ya están empezando a sentir esta agresión contra los inmigrantes y no saben qué hacer, que no se queden sin hacer nada en su casa, porque eso no va a detener la agresión. Tienen que educarse y tienen que participar. La red fronteriza no nada más denuncia, sino que ofrece soluciones. Una de las soluciones es: edúcate sobre cuáles son tus derechos en este país. Tengas o no tengas documentos, la Constitución te protege. Nosotros te enseñamos cómo defenderte de posibles abusos.
Así es, y finalmente les quiero invitar el lunes a escuchar el programa Trucha Time. Vamos a tener representantes de la Organización Mexicanos en Exilio para hablar de la situación de los exiliados mexicanos aquí en nuestra frontera, y a la vez vamos a recibir un reportaje de algunos activistas de derechos humanos de Chihuahua sobre las protestas y la reacción del Estado en Chihuahua y en Juárez, el gasolinazo que muchos están viviendo y que va a impactar y está impactando al Paso ahorita. Ya están pagando más gas porque ya subió el precio de gas por $2.90, lo cual es lo que son 80 pesos, lo que es el mínimo. Entonces, una persona en Chihuahua, en México, tiene que trabajar un día para comprar un galón de gas. Y eso es en luz de Trump parando la inversión en México. Entonces, si ustedes creen que eso va a parar la migración, un muro lo va a parar, están muy, muy confundidos, y lo que les espera aquí es lo que nos están haciendo. Por eso nos tenemos que organizar. Con eso me despido. Hasta la próxima.
Keep this movement going. Keep this movement rolling. In spite of the difficulties, and we're going to have a few more difficulties, keep climbing. Keep moving. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.